Hey guys, Lucid here. I'm going to do a very quick video on non-aggression pacts, or NAPs. And they're a pretty interesting tool. In diplomacy, I'm going to have some musings about them, kind of how they're used in, I guess, geopolitics or like the real world at the end of this, but we'll cut straight to the point for this video. What I'm showing you now is a graphic that has been floating around a lot of different Discord servers. And I think it's actually a little bit confusing, and I'll explain why. This is the graphic that I'm going to use to explain how I think non-aggression pacts work. But first, I'll just show you this other graphic that's been floating around and why it's actually a little bit confusing. So basically, notice is given, okay, and then you have, so NAP 0, notice is given, and then you have a war. What does notice is given mean? That is basically the big question in all of this. Does that mean you've received an in-game message on turn 67? Or does it mean you sent it on turn 67? That is where many people have different interpretations of this graphic. And this is posted on like Discord channels that have a lot of games. So there's a lot of confusion about it. And different people think different things. And you honestly haven't played multiplayer Dominions until you have been all in a tizzy about the exact precise terms of a non-aggression pact, and you both hire lawyers and you get upset and never talk to each other again. That's basically like your induction into Dominions multiplayer. And hopefully we can have, that is not going to go away. And I should have actually done this at the beginning, guys, but this is my opinion. Right, this is how most of the games on my server, since I'm in a lot of them, end up kind of running. The non-aggression pact terms I'm going to lay out. Maybe it can be a standard which everybody can agree to. But that being said, it's just my opinion, right? So you can do whatever you want. You can interpret a non-aggression pact however you want. So can your opponent. You can hire an entire legal team, right, to defend your case. And ultimately, you can ignore the legal counsel that anybody gives to you and just attack and do whatever you want in the game. Because almost all Dominion games are Machiavellian, and the non-aggression pacts are mostly there for guidance, and you can just break them if you want to. Okay. So the notice is given is confusing. Is it sent? Is it received? I guess implied given. It implies sent. Right? In that case, then we would be in agreement here. But I've gotten in arguments with people over what it means, right? And it gets real tricky once you use Discord, because then you use Discord and it's like, oh, well, I told you on turn 67. And so that means that you got it on turn 67 and the issues can only be ordered, can only land on turn 68. Well, did you tell me at the very end of turn 67, like 1 minute before the turn rolled, where I didn't get to do anything? Or did you tell me at the beginning where I could prepare a whole turn for the orders to roll, or basically for an attack? Because a NAP 0 isn't a thing. Nobody signs them. They don't work. Basically, you just, in my understanding, you would like send a notice that, hey, I'm attacking you, and on this turn, the other person logs in to look at their turn, and they have a cheeky notice, and they are attacked, right? But again, this graphic, it's a little open to interpretation, right? But to go on to like a NAP 3, it's saying, okay, notice is given, and then you have a turn to prepare, and then the final turn to prepare where you script hostile actions, and then the hostile actions resolve on this turn, right? But again, the entire confusion often is around what is this blue box, notice is given, right? Does that mean I know about it? So if you tell me you sent an in-game message this turn, then does that mean that, the message got received this turn? What happens if you send it in Discord? If you send the message in Discord, does this count as a turn to prepare? People have been in knockdown, drag-out fights over this. I know it seems really, really dumb. And if you haven't played multiplayer games, you are going to be like, Lucid, what in the hell are you talking about? Why would anybody fight over this? This just seems really, really straightforward. If you have been in multiplayer games, you will have been in a fight with somebody about this. Here's a graphic which I posted on my channel. Feel free to post it in games that you are in. Just if nothing, it doesn't mean this is the truth. All right. But it's more clear. I will stand by that. It is much more clear about how this all works. All right. And anyway, at least it's that, right? And you can see it looks very similar to the other graphic. Like we have blue, and then we don't have a nap 0 drawn, so that's a thing, but you can imagine a nap 0 where there's sent and attack lands up here. So it's the cheeky nap 0. But let's talk about this now. So basically there's two paradigms. One where the message is sent in-game, the other where the message is sent in Discord. And there's a caveat here where the player has plenty of time to prepare. So what does that mean? Turn rolls. I send a message. I look at my turn, right, for like 10 minutes. I say, yep, definitely going to end my nap with you. I send you a message in Discord. You get it. You can't have any case that said, oh, the only time I had where I possibly could do my turn was the 10 minutes after the turn rolled. And now there's no way I'm going to have time to look at my turn, before, the turn rolls. So this doesn't really count as a turn to prepare, right? Now, you could make the argument that if you send it in Discord, it should only be as if you had sent it in-game that turn. You're just letting them know a little bit early. But that's not really the same thing, right? Like, you could set it up like that, but then fundamentally, like a nap 3, which is going to end in Discord, assuming you don't tell them at the last minute before the turn rolls, effectively means you get a whole nother turn to prepare than if you did it in-game, because the same turn is being sent. It's all, like, there's no difference between when it's sent and received in Discord. They're the same turn, right? So let's go through the top thing, and then we'll come back to the Discord bit. But the top thing is super clear. This is how I recommend you do your naps. Even if you want to talk about it in Discord, I often, and I have a little disclaimer down here at the bottom suggesting how I do it, but I think it's also best practice for you, though of course you do it however you want to. But I send all of my messages in game. That way there's no confusion about it. The first thing they see when they log in to look at their turn is a message from me saying, hey buddy, let's do some fighting. It's time for our nap to end, right? And there's no confusion, right? So the message is sent, but they have no idea. So this is not a turn to prepare for them because it's only sent on my end. They get the message. So a nap 1, they have a turn to prepare. A nap 2, right? They get the turn. They have 2 turns to prepare, and then the attacks lands. This is very straightforward. All right. Nap 3, which is the most important one, I put it in on my turn for turn 10. On turn 11, they get it. They have turn 11. They have turn 12. They have turn 13 to prepare. Turn 14, the attacks actually land. Right. That's not when they're issued. They're issued here on turn 13. Right. So you have 3 turns to prepare. Right, this is always very straightforward, I think, and very clear. On the Discord one, it gets a little bit more tricky because basically you can imagine if you're doing a blitz and you have a nap 1, so you get 1 turn to prepare. I say, the turn rolls, I look at the turn, I say, yep, time to end my nap with you. Now, in a blitz, you still can use the in-game messaging system, so you still can do this. But oftentimes in a blitz, like maybe you're in voice chat, you're talking to people, y'all are having fun, you don't want to use the in-game messaging system, you can send them a message in Discord and you can say, okay, the non-aggression pact is ending. And then, presumably if it's not right before the turn rolls and they have plenty of time to do it. Now, one thing too is most games, like most people will be understanding if somebody ends their nap with you and you've at least seen it, and you need time to prepare, it's very common for people to say, okay, I need a 12-hour extension or whatever on my turn so that I can incorporate this new news and start changing some of the logistics for troops to prepare for war, right? So, that's also a caveat here. If the player gets back to you, they can also ask for more time so they can have time to incorporate, the changes that will inevitably come from a non-aggression pact ending into their turn orders, right? But yeah, basically, you send it to them, they get it, they have plenty of time to prepare. This is their one turn of preparation in a nap 1, and then the attacks land, right? And basically, it's the same thing. And the reason why these are different, and just to repeat myself, because sometimes repetition is a good thing, is because in game, when you send it and when it's received, those are on different turns. In Discord, the message is sent and received on the same turn. So to get the same number of turns to prepare, you need basically different looking little schedules. So a nap 3, what would it look like? Because this is the most common one, right? Turn 10, I look at my turn, I say, okay, it's time to end our non-aggression pact. I send you a message in Discord saying, hey, non-aggression pact has ended. You say, okay, got it. You asshole, I'm going to kill you, right? And then that is the cue for us to have 3 turns to prepare, with the last we can issue hostile attack orders. So, all that being said, if you send a message in Discord to end your non-aggression pact, you're more likely going to have frustrating things with the person you're doing this with. What I recommend is you do it in game, and then some people don't read messages. And if you want to be really friendly about it, you can send the message in game, and then you follow up in Discord and just say, hey, did you get the message? And they'll be like, yeah, you're ending your non-aggression pact with me, you asshole. And you'd be like, yeah, I'm sorry, but I think I need to. Right? And then that's that. Yeah. So I think that clarifies some of the stuff about non-aggression pacts. If that's really all you're interested in, you can tune out here. I'm going to muse a little bit about it in the world. So, like in geopolitics in real life, there's a lot. And by the way, this is relevant to dominions because you aren't constrained to only using non-aggression pacts. They're just very common because they're very practical. But in real life, you can use all other sorts of tools. There's a defensive alliance. And this was very common, has been signed many, many times in the world. And basically it says, if one party is attacked by another party, then that will draw their ally into war with them. And this can be kind of open to lawyering in a lot of ways. Most of the time when one nation attacks another, there will be some pretext for war that justifies their response. Oh, we were bombed. We were attacked here. When Hitler went off to attack Russia, it's well known and there's documents for it. There were staged attacks where they actually got prisoners of war or some kind of prisoners, and they had them basically euthanized. I think they were given an injection, and they were put in Russian uniforms. And then they had some explosions go off at a border station. And, then they found these dead Russians, and they were Russian-looking prisoners. So, and this was in conjunction with a cacophony of basically PR or propaganda that had been blasted out for weeks to the German people that were saying, there's more violence on the front and the Russians are preparing for an attack and all of this. So if you're a German citizen, you're getting this wave of propaganda about how the Russians are about to attack. And then there's a staged incident, and then you march off to war. And presumably, in a situation like that, because you were attacked, you had a reason to go to war, that would draw your allies into the defensive alliance. However, a lot of times when these things are signed, there is a lot more lawyering that is put into defensive alliances. And, I can't remember. It's actually really interesting when you look at some of the details. I'd have to I could have prepared more for this. But, I know when Russia and Germany were conducting a non-aggression pact, they were very careful about how they were saying what would pull them into a war to set expectations. It ended up not all mattering because Germany broke the non-aggression pact. But there was a lot of kind of degradation in relations before the non-aggression pact was actually broken, where there's a lot of evidence that Stalin knew it was coming. He just didn't know when. He misestimated it by a year. But he also kind of ignored a lot of stuff that suggested the Napa break was coming before then. And that gets us to kind of an interesting point, which I think I want to talk about, is that in the real world, so in Dominions, non-aggression pacts are super common. And the reason they're common is because defensive alliances are like very complicated. There's a lot of lawyering about what can draw you in, what can't. Ultimately, defensive alliances don't work that great. You know, like there were a lot of defensive alliances prior to World War II, where like Czechoslovakia had a defensive alliance with France and with Russia. But Russia's was conditional upon France supporting Czechoslovakia if they were attacked. So if Germany attacked Czechoslovakia, then France was obligated by an alliance to come in and save Czechoslovakia. And when they did that, that would also trigger the defensive alliance from Russia, and Russia would come in to help. But it ended up not happening, right? It ended up that Czechoslovakia got eaten. They were ready to fight, but basically France backed out and said, we're not going to support you in a fight, so you should probably just secede. Or not secede, but, give in. And Russia then, of course, was not going to do anything. Whether they even would have or not, if France decided to help, is also heavily open to interpretation. So that's the thing with defensive alliances. They're not really super effective. It's more just like a communication of intent that you can't really rely on in real life. Because whether somebody is going to commit to war and how many troops they're going to commit, like, okay, what if they just declare war, but they don't commit any troops? These things are all very hard to force. And the only thing that can really make another nation commit troops to a war is them believing at the time that it's in their interest. So defensive alliances are kind of nice. They've kind of done some things in history where they've been kind of okay. But there's a lot of problems with them. The other thing is a military alliance, or basically a full-on alliance where you say if any party goes to war, then we will join them. And this actually in some ways makes more sense, because to sign it, first of all, is a major commitment, because you're giving, I forget, there was some British prime minister who said it really well. And if I prepared for this video, I'd have his quote, but I think it was actually Neville Chamberlain, which is probably not the best person to quote on diplomatic advice, but he said something basically to the effect that I don't want to give the decision of my country's diplomacy to another nation. Like, I don't want the decisions of my country to be predetermined by the decisions of another nation. So, like, should France and England sign a military alliance? Great, it sounds good. Like, they need to team up and be strong and unify. The problem of doing that, of course, is that then France gets in any war, and then England is obligated by a treaty to join France, whether they like to or not. Yeah, and there's a lot of problems with those too. I mean, there's a lot of problems with defensive alliances too, because you can have rippling, all of these alliances, and it's kind of what happened in World War I. I can't remember which ones in World War I were military and which ones were defensive. But they all had complicated legalese. But basically what ended up happening, whether they were offensive or defensive alliances, was it was basically a cascading set of paperwork that put all these countries on one side or another of the war, and then everybody got pulled into a war. So those are those same sort of things can, by the way, happen. And the problem that you have is, at the end of the day, it's all paper. And what is going to matter a lot, it's not the only thing that matters, the paper matters some, but what is going to matter a lot is what are the underlying incentives for each nation at the time, and what should they do? Right? Like, if somebody says, sure, I'll help you if you get attacked, but at the time they're getting attacked by somebody else and they don't have the troops to send to help you, well, it's not going to matter. Or if you were too big, because you've just eaten somebody else, and somebody said, oh, I'll help you if you get attacked. We have a defensive alliance. But some small nation is whooping up on you and helping out the game state. Well, then they may just choose, oh yeah, I'm so sorry you got attacked, I'll do something, and then they don't do anything. And you can't really do anything about it. You just say, oh, sorry, I just don't have troops over there. It's just, anyway, non-aggression pacts are usually very simple and straightforward. They're not very controversial. You're just saying we're not going to attack each other, right? The important thing, I think, in real life, and this also relates to dominions, is that it's only a piece of paper, and a lot of non-aggression pacts. There's a huge advantage to getting first strike in a war, and many, 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 many times when a non-aggression pact is ended in real life, it is ended by an act of violence, because the people that want to end it, they also want to win the war, right? They don't want to fight and lose, and they want to get that initial advantage. And if you think about it, real life is like a Dominions game you only have time to play once, right? So maybe you can do some PR and cover up or make up stuff that justifies your break of the non-aggression pact. But maybe after you've broken like 2 or 3 or 4 of them, people don't trust you anymore, which is kind of what happened with Hitler. Like the British wouldn't even really talk with him because they just didn't trust him. So, but that being said, he got amazing advantages from breaking some of his non-aggression pacts and moving very quickly. He almost got to Moscow by just blitzing through the Russian line. And that's a whole nother interesting thing. But it is interesting to think about, like if real life is like a Dominions game you only play once, you don't really care about having any kind of reputation that people are going to, come back and not trust you in the future on. And furthermore, so what would that mean you would probably do? Like if you only ever played one Dominions game your whole life, you would probably keep non-aggression pacts while there's still a lot of players in the game, because you're worried about what people think about you. If you break your first non-aggression pact, then nobody will trust you. But as soon as you can use, like, break a non-aggression pact to win the game, like if there's some game-winning move you can do, like conquer all of a continent, and then you've basically won the game in the case of World War II or like real life, you might do it, right? Because that's the way to win that early. That's the way to most decisively win. And I think too, it's easy to say like non-aggression pacts, violating a non-aggression pact is bad and we should never do it. And certainly like Hitler was bad and he broke a lot of non-aggression pacts. So that logic kind of holds up there. But I think too, if you think about it, like if your country was going to go off to war because there was something that most everybody in the country believed was right that you needed to do, which, by the way, like offensive wars, in my opinion, are generally not a very good thing and are usually not right, and the population usually does not support them, or often doesn't. But for whatever reason, if they did, ending, does it make more sense to keep a non-aggression pact and maybe lose 100,000 people and only have like a 50% chance of winning the war? Or does it make more sense to violate the non-aggression pact, get a huge alpha strike in, only lose 30,000 people, and have an 80% chance of winning the war? Those are ethical questions, I think, in real life that are pretty complicated. Which would suggest potentially that in real life, non-aggression pacts are pieces of paper that communicate the current intent, and that world leaders should be very aware of all of the happenings on the ground in terms of like, where is the military moving? Are there troop buildups on your border? And furthermore, they should be understanding how the incentives and motives of other players can change so that they can anticipate a non-aggression pact ending before it actually ends. Because it's very likely in real life that a non-aggression pact will end by a hostile action, not by any communication. And if you take that and you look at World War II, there were huge German troop buildups. And they had been saying, okay, we're training our troops over here so that we can attack England. But there were huge German troop buildups, massive stockpiles of arms, tons of logistics work being done, huge tank battalions, tons of troops building up on the Russian border. And it wasn't a secret. Like, the Russians knew about it, but they just didn't think Hitler was going to attack it. Stalin thought they would do it in a year. And he had issued a statement actually saying war with Germany was inevitable. He had done this before Germany attacked him because he wasn't dumb. He had figured out that it was coming. He just didn't think it was coming this year. He thought they would need another year to prepare. Winter was coming. He didn't think the Germans would attack, all of that. So those are some of the musings on non-aggression pacts. In general, they are good. Dominions is an interesting case because there's lots of games. So even if you can make a game-winning move and break a nap, there's still a strong incentive in Dominions not to. Whereas in real life, that may not be the case. But yeah, non-aggression pacts still are one of the most useful diplomatic tools in real life. They're definitely the most useful tool in Dominions. And yeah, I hope this is maybe giving you some things to think about. Hope you've enjoyed it. Oh, you know what? There's one more thing I want to talk about. And this is related to in-game non-aggression pacts. So, non-aggression pacts, what all does it... If you have a scout that gets caught, is that breaking a non-aggression pact? No. If you have a Bane Venom charm that gets caught in somebody's territory, yeah, that's a violation of a non-aggression pact. If you were doing remote attacks on somebody that can't be traced, is that a violation of a non-aggression pact? Yeah, but the other person can't prove it, but they might know. So it's like, do at your own risk, because there's a very good chance it's going to destroy your reputation, in that game at least. What about sneaking enemy forces? This got asked in one of the videos recently. Like, if a non-aggression pact is ending, but it's not over, can an enemy stealth in forces? In my experience, every single elf that has ever ended a nap with me has started sneaking in forces right away. So I just kind of accept that that's normal. And at the end of the day, there's not even a huge difference between sneaking in an elf and cloud trapezing in an elf, right? Like, it's kind of the same effect. They get deep into your land on the first turn of war, and it's super goddamn annoying. The one difference with it, though, is it's possible to patrol out sneaking elves, which a lot of times I will try to do if elves are ending their nap with me, so that I can potentially catch some of those stupid, pointy-eared mofos before they get to raid all of my stuff. So that is a thing. But yeah, in general, I would say it's probably okay to sneak troops through. If you're sneaking troops through areas that are patrolled, and so they'll get patrolled out, and then a battle will ensue, expect that to be controversial, because technically sneaking troops through might be a violation of a nap. But if they're caught, it's a little bit like, or if they're not caught, it's a little bit like if a tree falls in the woods, and nobody's there, does anybody hear it? Or does it make noise? Like, yeah. Do casting globals violate a non-aggression pact? I would, like, if somebody put up Utterdark, like if I was playing Airmore and I put up Utterdark, is that a violation of my non-aggression pact? No. Not exactly. Like, it doesn't make me a nap breaker, but I think it nullifies it, which is and this is my opinion, right? But so I think there's a host of globals that if you put up, you can basically expect your naps to be nullified. And the other thing is, Some people will not violate a nap even if you're one turn away from winning. Most people, though, do not expect a non-aggression pact to stop other people from stopping you from winning if like the winning is imminent, like you're going for your last thrones or whatever. And other people, I am not one of them. I will never break, at least I don't think I will, ever break a nap to win the game. But there's a big swath of people who will. So just know that. And yeah, if somebody did that to me, it wouldn't be like an unforgivable sin, but I would remember it and maybe try to pay them back, or I don't know. Thing is, like, you do that, then like what happens if somebody else violates their nap with you in the next game and elfs you even though you had a nap? And then when other people are like, oh no, you can't trust him, he just violated his nap, you're like, well, he violated his nap literally in the last game we were in and I'm just paying him back. Like, does that make you a nap breaker? Who even knows these things, right? So anyway, there's a lot of ambiguity once you get into the finer points of like what constitutes a nap violation and what doesn't. In general, well, there's some other things I do want to cover, I guess, while we're talking about it. Stealing somebody's global, not a nap violation. Some people think if you steal my global, that violates our non-aggression pact. And it's certainly not friendly. Like, if y'all were in alliance, like, and you steal like your buddy's global, like, that would be not very cool. But that is not what a non-aggression pact is. Like, a non-aggression pact is not an alliance. Like, y'all aren't on the same team. You can be on the same team if you want to. You could team up with somebody and be like, hey, let's go after this nation together, and after that we'll go in this nation together, and then eventually they're going to backstab you. But like, you could do that. And then maybe you would have even more right to be salty when somebody steals your global. But the globals are fought over. There's only so many spots. And if I had been, or if I put up Eternal Pyre and somebody else had been, or let's say like Well of Misery, because that's a little bit farther off. Like, let's say I spend, I rush Conjuration, I put it up, but there's an Airmore in the game that I have a non-aggression pact with. And they, or any nation really, right? But they had been planning, like, part of their whole strategy, or maybe somebody was planning on doing tarts, and part of their whole strategy was controlling Well of Misery. And I have put it up now, and they have a non-aggression pact with me. And they're going to take it. Like, that is part of their strategy, and they have been saving up 300 gems for as soon as they have the research, they're going to take Well of Misery. Do they need to end their non-aggression pact with me to steal the global? No, of course not. And that doesn't make any sense, because does that mean they're going to attack me? Like, do they end our non-aggression pact, take the global, and then say, okay, well, now that I have the global because our non-aggression pact is over, I'd like to reinstate it because I think we should still be at peace, because underlying, the game state, we both need to be at peace. It's still in our mutual best interest. So that doesn't make any sense. Taking globals are competitive. There's only a certain number of spots. If you want to do something, it's going to come at the expense of somebody else for globals, and that's just how it is. And this is my opinion. But fighting over globals is completely independent of non-aggression pacts. But yeah, some of the globals that are super cancerous, like Underdark, Astral Corruption, some of those things can be considered to nullify naps, and I don't think anybody will think ill of you if somebody puts up Underdark and you let them. Don't just elf them. That would be really, really rude if you had a non-aggression pact. You tell them in game, like in the main channel or whatever, okay, you've put up Astral Corruption. I consider this non-aggression pact null. Like, it's not like you've broken it, you're a nap breaker, but you have done something which is hostile to me. You're going to do a ton of damage to me by putting up Astral Corruption. Now, that's different than somebody putting up, like, Arcane Nexus or something. Like, somebody puts up Arcane Nexus, you may need to attack them, or like Gift of Nature's Bounty. That's not a hostile act, right? It's just basically like a big gym gen, right? And at Gift of Nature's Bounty, they're getting more income. It's not a hostile act by any means. It's not an aggressive act. They haven't attacked you. They're not doing stuff which is killing your stuff. Like, if if Underdark goes up, they have completely ruined your economy in one turn, right? Like it's very much an attack. If Astral Corruption goes up, they're going to be killing dozens of your mages every turn. So those are like very hostile. If somebody does Arcane Nexus or whatever, you could even make the argument those things, you also could nullify the nap and say, I want to attack you going on now. But I think that's getting into like the gray space that's a little controversial. For those like game-winning positive globals, not the game-winning negative globals, people would be more likely to expect you to wait for the nap to tick down. However, I think you could also make an argument that you're just going to nullify it and tell people. So I think that's another area that's like a little bit of a gray space. But, it's like if somebody puts up Nexus and they're going to be surprised people want to attack them the next turn, it's like, okay, well, there you go. I'm trying to think if there's any more gray area on naps that I want to cover. I guess there's like very weird areas where like if indies attack a province and you don't take it back, like, and somebody else takes it, is that a violation of the non-aggression pact? I would say no, but you need to, it's cheeky. And you probably should talk to them. And it's okay to be salty about that. And I would expect if I had a non-aggression pact with somebody and I got attacked by indies and then they took it from me that next turn, that they would give it back to me as part of the non-aggression pact. Like they don't just get to, because I got attacked by indies, they don't get free territory every time that happens. That's then protected. But I don't think it's like, oh my God, you're a nap breaker. Yeah, I don't think that's how that works. There's probably some other kind of weird corner cases that are going to be gray area, but you can get out your lawyers and you can try to lawyer things and do this, that, and the other. I don't really love playing with like lawyer. I don't know. I would much rather form a long-term Dominions relationship, not like even game to game, just even within a game. Like if there's somebody I'm going to be buddies with and we're going to do actions to strengthen each other, I would much rather do that with somebody that I don't think is the kind of player that's going to lawyer me to death on weird little things and, violate a non-aggression pact because one turn I had attacked indies that he couldn't get to for 3 turns. And so they were sitting there, but that had been his territory before. And then he messaged me and I gave it back to him, but still, because I had done that, our naps void, even though he didn't tell me. Like, somebody that does that is not, that's going to basically, in my book, be effectively, I don't know, like somebody who does that and then like does a big elfing. I'm probably not going to trust that person or want to work like in a mutually beneficial thing with them too often. Doesn't mean I wouldn't do a non-aggression pact with them, but it's just like Dominions is a game where you, depending on the community and all that, you often can trust non-aggression pacts, and you want to be very careful about opening yourself up to being in a position where you are not going to violate a non-aggression pact on somebody else, but they will lawyer their way into violating one for you. So anyway, those are my musings. The video's gotten to be pretty long now. The meat and potatoes of it was pretty short. If you want a copy of this, you can screenshot this and use it. There's also, I'll put a link to it too in the description, but you can also get it on my Discord. So anyway, guys, I hope you had a good one, and see you next time.